Hello students. So today we are going to understand and understand the topics and the terms related to our chapter 5, the fundamental unit of life. That is, what is the root from where life comes. Okay, that is the fundamental unit of life. So when I say, if we look around us, we will see all the things around us, like from this phone to your pen to your paper, all these are things, to your table, to your chair, everything. So these are made up of many things. So when I say things, we all know that this everything is made up of something. Okay, so it is like when we say things, we know that things, if I'm going to be specific, these are matters. So matters, all the matters around us are made up of molecules. And what are molecules made up of? They are made up of atoms. Similarly, when we consider life, living things, we living things like humans, animals, plants, every other insects, birds, you can say bacteria, fungi, all these are living things. Okay, so living things are also made up of some basic thing, the smallest thing that creates the whole complex structure, like us, the humans. So what is that thing called? So that thing is called cell. What is cell? Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. That means it has a structure, also it has a function. Understood? Just like my eyes, this has a structure. All human beings have got eyes, so they have a specific structure. When I see when I see the size or shape of a eye like object, I know this is eye. I cannot call the eye as a nose, right? So nose is different structure, eye is different structure, my lips are different structure, my fingers are different structure, my hands are different. So everything has got some structure, right? So what is cell? Cell is the main structural, basic structural thing. Also it has a functional unit. What is the functional unit? It does some specific function, it has some work to it. Okay, so that is the what is cell. Cells are the basic structural and functional unit of life. So how was cell discovered? Cell was discovered by whom? Cell was discovered by Robert Hooke. So there was an experiment which Robert Hooke did, and from that he saw that some shapes like structures, and then cell was discovered. He named the term cell. So if you go through the book, first page on the introduction, you will see the lines, the story, or the exact specific how he what experiment he did. Like he took a slice, and then he saw it on his own microscope that he built, and he saw spaces between spaces between them. So that spaces were called cells. He termed the spaces, the vacant things, as cell. So you go through that, and a number of cells. So we know, like, and when I join, if I have a large pieces of wood, multiple pieces of wood, if I join them, nail them together, then I can make a chair, I can make a table. Okay, so similarly, when cells come together and they work together, they form tissues, right? And those tissues, in the end, they might form organs. Okay, so if I say, like, suppose if you want to understand how my tongue works, like how we get taste. So tongue is an organ. Okay, so it is made up of tissues, and those tissues are again made up of cells. So whenever I say cells, this is the basic understanding of cell. So when I say cell needs, since it is a functional unit of life, it does some work. So anything that does some work, it needs energy, right? So we come to the term cellular respiration. What is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration is the process by which food releases energy into the mitochondria. Cells absorb glucose from the food and burn it to produce energy. So whenever we take fruit, we release energy, and those energy in the form of what? Glucose. Okay, when we take food, it forms glucose means, you can say, sugar. Okay, and from the sugar they burn it to produce energy. Cells, they work. How do they work? They produce energy from glucose. Okay, that is how cellular respiration works. Now there are two types of cells. One is prokaryotic cell and another is eukaryotic cell. So what is prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell? Prokaryotic cells are primitive, and they do not have any nucleus. What is nucleus? Since you know how a atom works, atom, what does it have? It has a nucleus, that includes both the proton and the neutron, and the electrons revolve around it. So that is the main basic shape of a atom. Okay, an atom has a nucleus which has both the protons and the neutrons, and electrons revolve around it. Similarly, in cells also there is a center part, a term that is nucleus. So prokaryotic cells are very primitive, that is they are very basic, and they do not have a nucleus. On the other hand, eukaryotic cells are advanced and they have a well-defined nucleus. So what is the one difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell is that prokaryotic cell do not have any nucleus, eukaryotic cells they have nucleus. Now next is what is the cell structure in eukaryotic cells. Okay, since prokaryotic cells do not have nucleus, so we are not talking about that. Since eukaryotic cells are advanced, they have nucleus, so let us understand how the cell structure works in eukaryotic cells. In eukaryotic cells have the most defined, well-defined structure, that is they have a well-defined structure. Okay, these cells have a cell membrane. Membrane means what? On the outer lining there is a cover. Now on inside this cover they will have organelles, जैसे कि like we have our body, this is the body shape of our body. Inside this shape, this is the outermost cover. Inside this cover we have what? Organs. Okay, they perform different they have different functions to them. Similarly, a eukaryotic cell has a membrane, and inside that membrane there are there are cell organelles and also a well-defined nucleus. Okay, now the nucleus also has its cover. Okay, and that is called what? Nuclear membrane. Understood? So what is cell membrane? Cell membrane, as I said, is the outermost covering of a cell. It is made up, what it is made up of? It is made up of a phospholipid bilayer membrane. What is it called? It is called phospholipid bilayer membrane, and it is selectively permeable in nature. Selectively permeable means what? Suppose, let me tell you, our skin is also selectively permeable. Understood? How? See, this is the outermost covering of our human body, the skin. The skin is selectively permeable. How? Because if I cut my skin, blood will come out. Okay, but if I don't cut my skin, if the skin is not cut and it is intact, then what happens? Sweat comes out. So normally the cells in the nature of the skin, they allow only certain things to come out. That is, they will allow only sweat to come out. Only water, that is in the form of sweat, will come out, and nothing else will come out. But if I cut the skin, if my skin is cut, it is broken, then blood may come out. Blood will also come out. So that is a semi-permeable membrane. It allows certain specific things only to come out. Okay, the structure of a cell membrane is best described by the fluid mosaic model. What is fluid mosaic model? For that you like go through your book, the whole term is given and then the explanation is given. Okay, now there are two more important things. One is diffusion. One is diffusion, another is osmosis. So what is diffusion? Diffusion is like, if you have seen a water filter. Okay, the water filter has two parts. One is top part where you fill the water, and then it gets filtered and comes to the bottom part. Okay, that is the storage. So how does that work? How does water work? Water, that is the movement of water molecules, move from a point of higher concentration where you have put the water, there is lot of water, and then they try to move to a point of lower concentration where there is less water. So that is diffusion. Similarly, inside our body, process of diffusion occurs. In a cell, diffusion occurs. Okay, in any cell, the process of diffusion occurs. Like suppose it is a cell. Now that cell, if in the outside of the cell there is a lot of water, but inside there is no water, then what happens is that movement of molecules, that water molecules, they move from a point of higher concentration to a point of lower concentration, and that is called diffusion. Like on the outside, suppose when I'm like, if I'm working out, if I'm going to the gym, if I'm working out, if I'm doing any hard work, on the outer part of my skin, there is no water, it is dry. But on the inner side, what happens? There is water. It is like, what to say, it is humid inside the skin. So what happens? Sweat moves out from the skin. That is movement of some molecules from a point of higher concentration to a point of lower concentration. That is diffusion. Next is osmosis. What is osmosis? Osmosis is same. Osmosis is also a movement, also the movement of molecules from a point of higher concentration to the point of lower concentration, but across a semi-permeable membrane. Okay, the specific point is osmosis occurs across semi-permeable membrane. Now osmosis is also called, it is a very important point you should remember, osmosis is also a selective process. That is, it is also called a selective process. Why? Because osmosis only allows certain molecules to pass through it, and not every molecule it does not allow to pass through it. Water is usually the only free flowing molecule across this membrane. So the best example is the skin that I gave you. So this skin is a semi-permeable membrane. Osmosis occurs. How osmosis occurs? Because it only allows water to pass through it. Not like if you put oil, so oil will not come out from your body. We know that our body has some oil, it releases oil. So yes, our skin also releases some kind of oily things, but to be very basic, mostly we see what we see, only water passing out through it. Okay, so osmosis is a selective process, why? Because it only allows certain molecules to pass through it and not every molecule. Okay, next is three type of solutions. Okay, one is isotonic, hypotonic, hypotonic and hypertonic. Okay, so three type of solutions are there: isotonic, hypotonic and hypertonic. What is isotonic solution? Isotonic solutions are those solutions which have same solute and same pH concentration as the surrounding body fluid or the cytoplasm. Sorry, which are the same solute. Same solute means what? On, suppose this is a cell, on the outer side and the inner side both have the same solute. That means both have the same, the inside is also water, outside is also water. Okay, and they have the same pH concentration. That is, both are neither acidic nor basic. They have the same pH concentration as the surrounding body fluid or the cytoplasm. So what is cytoplasm, we will understand in the later part. Hypotonic solutions, they contain lesser amount of solute concentration compared to the surrounding fluid, and force the cell to rupture due to excess input of water into the cell. Now, since I told what happens in diffusion, something movement of molecules happen from a point of higher concentration to the point of lower concentration. Now suppose this is a cell. Okay, now this is a cell. Now inside the cell there is less water, less solute concentration. Okay, and the outside there are very much excess water. So what happens is that this forces the surrounding fluid to move to the inside, and what happens is that due to the excess input of water into the cell, what happens is that the cell ruptures. That is, the cell blows up. Understood? The next is hypertonic solutions. What is hypertonic solutions? They contain, hypertonic solutions contain a higher concentration of solute compared to the surrounding fluid. That means now on hypertonic solution, inside there is a higher solute concentration compared to the outside, and thus they push water out of the cell. Now water is being pushed out of the cell. Now see, if it is full, so it will be like this. Now if water is pushed out of the cell, what happens is that it will shrink. That is, it will become smaller, and at the end the cell will die. Understood? So in one case, on both the inner and the outer side, the same solute concentration. Okay, in hypotonic solution, outside it is more, inside it is less, and because of that the cell ruptures. Okay, in hypertonic solutions, inside there is more solute compared to the outside, and thus when water is being pushed out, it goes shrink. Okay, now since this is a cell will have a cell wall. So in plant cells are different from animal cells due to the presence of cell wall. In animal cells they do not have a cell wall, but in plant cells they have a cell wall. The cell wall is made up of what? Two things. One thing, it is called cellulose. Cell wall is made up of what? Cellulose, and gives a rigid structure to the plant cell. That means it gives a rigid, means what? Hard. It gives a hard structure to the plant cell. Now like how to say, like suppose if you see the stem of a tree. Okay, because of this cellulose, because we all know the cellulose is present in the stem of trees. So because of that cellulose, what happens is that the cell has a specific wall. Since like our house, it has some wall, and the walls are always what? They are hard, rigid structures. Similarly, in plant cells, they have a cell wall which is made up of cellulose, and this gives the rigid structure to the plant cell. Understood? Now similarly, as I said, we are human. I am a human being. So human beings, this is the whole structure. The outer lining is the skin. So inside this skin, this is called the, suppose it is a well-defined membrane. Inside that membrane there are different organs inside our body. Similarly, a cell also has a membrane on the outer side. Okay, now inside this, since it performs certain functions, so it will need certain organelles. Organelles means what? Just like organs, the cell also have certain organelles. So they perform specific function. Now, for example, number one, endocytosis. What is endocytosis? Endocytosis is the invagination of cell membrane followed by pinching off, forming a membrane bound vesicle. This is commonly seen in amoeba. So amoeba is a microscopic organism in which endocytosis is the part of the cell membrane followed by which helps in forming a membrane bound vesicle. Vesicle means what? Which forms a, like, what to say, a small tiny like vessel like thing. Okay, vessel like thing. So endocytosis helps in forming of those. Now second is, as I said previously, the nucleus. The nucleus is very important. It is the main power, like not the powerhouse, but it is the main processing unit of a cell. For example, in a computer we have the keyboard, we have the monitor, we have the mouse, but what is the most important processing unit? It is the CPU. Similarly, in a cell, the nucleus is the main processing unit of the cell. It has a double membrane, that is, it is a double layered skin bound organelle which contains the genetic material of inheritance. That means if from one cell another cell is to be made, okay, we know that from one cell another cell is made. So for to carry the inheritance, to carry the same properties, okay, if my first cell is different from the other cell, if the genetic material do not match, then what will happen? My whole organ will look different because they are two different cells. Okay, now what is the main basic thing? That suppose if I say this finger is made up of one cell, it has a nucleus which has some genetic material. Okay, now all the cells that make up this finger will contain the same genetic material for inheritance. And who gives this? This is given by the nucleus. So what is chromosome? Next is chromosomes. So during the before chromosomes, let us understand what is chromatin. Chromatin is a thread like structure. It looks just like a thread which serves as the genetic material present inside the nucleus. So we know inside the nucleus there is genetic material. What is that genetic material? It is the chromatin. It is a thread like structure which behaves as the genetic material. Okay, it is made up of DNA and protein molecules. So we all know what is DNA, how DNAs work. Okay, that is the main genetic code, DNAs and RNAs. So DNA, it is made up of, chromatin is made up of DNA and protein molecules. The DNA contains the hereditary information, okay, and needed for the structure and function of the organisms. Okay, who contains the hereditary information? The DNA, and it helps in the structure and function of the organisms. Now during the growth phase, as the cell grows, the chromatin condenses into a much thicker structure called chromosome. Okay, what is chromosome? Means initially the chromatin is just like a thread like structure. When the cell is small, it behaves as a genetic material. It contains what? It made up of DNA and protein molecules. Slowly when the cell grows, the chromatin condenses and becomes a thicker structure. Initially it was a thin thread like thing, and then it becomes thicker. Okay, it becomes thicker and then it is named as chromosome. Third is, as I said, we will study cytoplasm later. So what is cytoplasm? See, cytoplasm, the best example with cytoplasm is the fluid found inside the cell. Inside the cell there is a fluid. Okay, fluid means what? A liquid type thing. It gives the structure to the cell and houses different organelles of the cell. Now suppose if I blow a balloon, if I put a lot of water inside a balloon, you know what is balloon? If I put a lot of water inside a balloon, so because of that water, the balloon will get a shape. Similarly, in a cell, what happens is that because of that fluid, that is cytoplasm, what happens is that our structure, the cell gets a definite structure, and that after the cell gets the structure, all the organelles means what? Different parts of the cell are being placed inside in the cytoplasm. Understood? So inside the cell, what happens is that there is a liquid fluid like thing which is called cytoplasm. It gives structure to the cell, and also it houses, that means it contains the different organelles of the cell. Understood? Next is endoplasmic reticulum. It is a new term for you. Endoplasmic reticulum is a membrane like cell organelle. It is a membrane means what? As a cover, okay, as a boundary. So endoplasmic reticulum is a membrane like cell organelle, okay, that plays an integral role in the interpretation of the genetic information present in the nucleus. So who contains the genetic information? Previously we have studied, it is the chromosomes. That is chromosomes means bigger. Initially it is chromatin. Okay, so what is endoplasmic reticulum? Endoplasmic reticulum is a membrane like cell organelle that like interprets the genetic information present in the nucleus. That means it tells what the nucleus contains to the other parts of the body. So now there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum. One is rough endoplasmic reticulum, that is RER, rough ER. Another is smooth endoplasmic reticulum, that is SER. So rough ER are the ones that have ribosomes on it. Okay. Now rough ER, RER has what? These have ribosomes. Okay. What is ribosome? The ribosome is made up of nucleic acids and proteins. They are the site of protein synthesis. The rough ER is also involved in the modification and folding of protein. So what happens is that we know the genetic material inside the nucleus is what? DNA and protein molecules. So in rough ER, they have ribosomes, and those ribosomes include what? They include the nucleic acids and proteins. They are the site where protein synthesis, that is the breakdown of protein, takes place. Okay. Or the use of protein, synthesize the protein synthesis takes place. Okay. The rough ER also involved in the modification and folding of protein. That means that is what is protein synthesis is. That is the place, rough ER is the place where protein is synthesized, that is modification and folding of protein takes place. In case of smooth ER, they do not have ribosomes and thus are not involved in protein synthesis. However, the lipid metabolism and detoxifying poisonous molecules is done in smooth ER. So endoplasmic reticulum is what? Two types, smooth ER and rough ER. In rough ER, they have ribosomes which help in the synthesis of protein. In smooth ER, they do not have proteins, and so they do not synthesize protein. They do not have ribosomes, so they do not synthesize protein. But instead, they help in the detoxifying poisonous molecules. So cells, like cells, they might get toxicated, okay, because of some what to say, things that we eat or the food that we eat. Because of that, they might get toxicated in the many sense, like which is not good for our body or for our cell. So to remove that toxin, that is detoxifying of poisonous molecules, who helps? It is helped by the smooth ER. Smooth ER means smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Now some other organelles that are present in the cell is Golgi apparatus. Golgi apparatus is what? It is called the post office of the cell. Office of the cell, in the sense that means once protein is synthesized by in the endoplasmic reticulum, that is by the rough ER. Now protein is synthesized, so I need to pack and transport the protein across the cytoplasm. So who helps in that? That is Golgi apparatus. So Golgi apparatus is like the post office. The synthesized protein is being packed and transported by whom? By the Golgi apparatus. Okay. Next is lysosomes. What are lysosomes? These are referred to as the suicide bags of the cell, as they contain potent enzymes that can digest a cell. Lysosomes also help in defense by attacking a foreign object. So whenever our cell is being attacked by any foreign object that wants to destroy the cell, who helps? Lysosome helps. Lysosome is like a defense. Okay, it works as a defense in attacking any foreign object. Also, they have another important function to them, that is lysosomes have some potent enzymes. They have some enzymes to them that can digest a cell. They can digest the cell that they contain. Okay, so what is this? They are called the suicide bags. That means they can kill oneself. Okay. Next is mitochondria. What is mitochondria? Mitochondria is called the power plant of the cell. They generate ATP, as you know, adenosine triphosphate via the electron transport chain. They also have DNA called mtDNA, which makes the semi-autonomous organelle. So what is mitochondria? Mitochondria is like the powerhouse. How to say the powerhouse? Suppose it's like if I have a phone. So phone has different parts, different functions to it, which are performed by different parts. But where do I get the power from? I get the power from the battery. Similarly, a cell, it has a structure, it has different organelles, it have the genetic materials to it, it can synthesize protein, it can defend oneself. But to do all these things, they need power. So who is providing that power? It is provided by the mitochondria. So mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. So what do? They generate ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay. Also, they also have DNA, and which makes them semi-autonomous. Semi-autonomous means what? They can work on their own sometimes. Okay, semi-autonomous organelle, that is they can work on their own to some extent. Okay, completely autonomous means they won't listen to your brain, they will just work. But semi-autonomous means sometimes without the information of the brain they will keep on working, sometimes they need the information of the brain to work. Okay, so that is the mitochondria. Plastids. Next is plastids. What are plastids? There are various types of plastids in different cells based on the pigment they contain. The chloroplast is the plastid where the photosynthesis occurs. Some other plastids are leucoplast and chromoplast. So best example of plastid is what? Plastid means what? They give the, what to say, I can, the very best example I can give is that they contain a pigment because of which we see different colors. Okay, so one best example is in plants we see they are green in color. Why? Because of chloroplast, and chloroplast contain what? Chlorophyll. So chloroplast is the place where photosynthesis occurs. So those are plastids. Okay, what is vacuoles? Vacuoles are large vesicles, that is large vessels that hold water or air in them and give structural rigidity to the cell. Just as I said, what is the thing that contained the liquid that contained all the all the organelles inside the cell? These are called cytoplasm. Similarly, vacuoles are large vessels inside the cell which contain water or air, and they give structural, they just strengthen the cell. Okay, they then just give the structural hardness to the cell. Vacuoles are common in plant cells. In animals, vacuoles are either very small or absent. We are animals too. Human beings fall under animals category. So in animals, in human being, like either the vacuoles are totally very small or they are absent. Okay, but in case of plants, they vacuoles are very common. They are large vessels that contain water or air in them, and they give the structural hardness to the cell. Okay, so that is it. So this chapter is still here. Regarding this chapter, what I would like to say, there are some very important things that I have not included here. So why I have not included here? Because it will be a repetitive thing. Those are in your questions and answers. Okay, those are in your questions and answers. So what I will do is like what is the main difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell? What are the differences between animal cell and plant cell? Okay, so those I have written. I will give you the notes, and those are written in your notes very nicely. So kindly go through the notes. And as for this, see, these are very like theoretical based subjects. So what we have studied till here is what is cell, the introduction of the cell. So what is the cell wall? Plants contain cell wall, animals do not have cell wall. Okay, now what if there is a cell, it will have a two types of cell. One is prokaryotic cell, one is eukaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cell does not have any nucleus, eukaryotic cell has a nucleus. In eukaryotic cell we have different organelles, that is part of the cells that work as that have different functions. Out of them, what is cytoplasm? It is the fluid. What is chromatin? When the cell grows, chromatin becomes chromosomes. Similarly, what is Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, mitochondria, plastids, vacuoles? So all these things, so these are very theoretical based, and you need to learn them by heart. So regarding this is the very short and simplest of the explanations that I can give you for a chapter 5. So kindly go through this, and also please read. My suggestion would be, please read your textbook after going through this video, after going through this PPT presentation. Please go through the book for the deep learning. Okay, that means I said that cell is invented by Robert Hooke, but how did he invent? See, if I keep on repeating here, it won't help you. So better you go through the book. That actually there are 3 or 4 lines regarding to that. It will be written on your notes too. I will give you handwritten notes. So how he was actually able to discover cell. Okay, so similarly the diagrams. Okay, how the animal cell looks, how the plant cell looks. So please refer to your book for those. Okay, and if you have any like doubts, please ask me. Thank you.